Welcome to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. This is a show about pushing through obstacles and hard times in order to live a happy and fulfilled life. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's grow. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, here with my producer, executive producer, Andre Suttles.
What's going on, everybody?
Glad you're with us today, and we're excited for today's episode. We have Ryan Alford in the building. Or, matter of fact, we're in Ryan Alford's building.
We welcome you to the building.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, man. And thanks for having us. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to do it. You know, we did the podcast, I guess, earlier this year or last year? I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But, you came on Radicals, and happy to return the favor and talk, life and marketing and whatever we get into.
We'll jump all into the No Rain, No Rainbows. And I'd say this episode is long overdue. For the listeners at home, maybe meeting you for the first time, why not let them know who it is you are and what it is you do?
Well, I'm Ryan Alford. I'm the founder of Radical. We're a local ad agency here in Greenville, South Carolina. We're a full-service agency. What does that mean? We do everything, just about everything marketing, from website development to branding, content development. We specialize in, probably we're best known for social media marketing and management, though we do a lot with digital media and different things like that. So I'm founder of Radical. We're about 2 years old, but I've been in the ad agency and marketing business my entire career, so about 20 years to age myself a bit, and have had a couple startups, and we might get into a little bit of that in between, but for the most part, working in marketing and advertising. But from Greenville, South Carolina, born and raised in this market, went to Clemson, graduated a marketing degree, went straight into the agency business out of school, and have done that for pretty much my whole career, and have had a lot of ventures. I've lived in Manhattan for 5 years, doing the big agency thing, and working on large brands and different things throughout my career. So I think I'm pretty worldly, having grown up in the South and in Greenville, but traveled worldwide and in and out of the country with my jobs, and working with different brands and agencies. So, good old local boy that's now an entrepreneur.
I love it. And kind of jumping straight into things head first. When we talk about marketing, and this is a belief I've been part of for quite some time here, and a lot of people think, oh, do you need marketing? Do you need branding? And I believe everybody has to market themselves. They have to brand themselves at some point in time, especially in the world that we're living in now with social media and everything around us. How important is it for somebody to kind of pay attention to their brand?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many channels now that weren't available, say, 10, 15, obviously 20 years ago. It was kind of all mass media. You have TV, radio, advertising, expensive mediums, both for that only really medium to large businesses could afford. So even small business struggled a bit in telling their story. And when social media comes along, it's given an avenue not only for small business, but for people to have avenues to grow their personal brand. And it's such an opportunity because, even though organic reach, and not to get too specific into the technicalities of social media, both the opportunities, limitations, those kind of things, but the opportunities are so available with which to market yourself and create and tell your story and your persona, which makes you marketable, even if you never want to be an entrepreneur, makes you marketable to the next company that you work for, or in just laying the foundation for the business that you're going to build. We all do business with people and not brands and businesses. We do. So if you use these channels to tell your story, to lay the foundation, you're already one leg up, whether you go down the I'm going to work for other people or I'm going to work for myself route, because you're laying the foundation for people to get to know you and why they'd want to do business with you.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because I know in order for you to be in order for you to tell a story, you have to be creative. And creativity is actually the number one sought after trait of recruiters today. People who are creative, who can innovate inside of, be entrepreneurs inside of their businesses. So it's crazy how you say that, but also it's in today's world, it's something that is actually, we can apply. You know what I'm saying? So,
and it's just such the opportunity. It's kind of like, it wasn't an opportunity 20 years ago. It's not, your personal brand was your business card or your relationships that were lived in a very small world. I mean, no matter how much you networked, and there were certainly, you can go to conferences and do things, but there wasn't LinkedIn. There wasn't Facebook. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't all these channels to tell your story or to be transparent with what your values are, or whether that's business or personally related. There just wasn't that opportunity. And now it's just like there for the taking. Yeah. And so you don't have to, but I think what a lot of people get a little caught up in is what to say, how to say it. We kind of like get paralyzed in knowing how to use those channels sometimes. And that's become more of the challenge than the opportunity of using them. Yeah. But people get paralyzed in what to do and what to say on them.
Yeah. And what would you say to somebody that's kind of in the camp of, I don't need social media? And I'm not talking specifically just for business or maybe just an individual. And because I feel like almost in today's day and age, an employer will check out your social media presence just to get a better idea of who you are. Do you think it would hurt somebody if they don't have that social media presence?
It's funny. The people that I hear say that are either 50 to 60-year-olds in a really comfortable job with 7 figures in savings in the bank and don't want to change their ways, and so they don't see a need to do it. Or it's people that have no initiative. Yeah. And so the honest truth is, I have yet to find the in between. Like, it's either people that I hear say that are always struggling or never kind of getting from point A to point B, or they're so set in their ways and maybe they've reached an eclipse of where they don't have to rely on it. Because the true answer is everyone should be doing it. Yeah. And leveraging it, even if it doesn't, there's levels of it. You don't have to go on 7 channels and do 6 things, but as a business person, to not be on LinkedIn and not be engaging and not being posted, a few things a month or whatever is just crazy.
Yeah. You limit your options if you're not on the platform, and specifically talking to LinkedIn, that's where the recruiters are. So whatever industry you're in, if you're hoping to maybe find an opportunity above where you are right now, you almost have to be in an environment to be found.
Yep. So you need to be an expert. Like, that's, if you're, no matter what you do, if you do insurance, if you're a lawyer, if you're a plumber, if you're a photographer, whatever your industry is, you need to be an expert in that. You need to share knowledge in that. You want people to hire you and to trust you and to do these things, then you need to show that you can do and talk about those things. Yeah. And to not use those channels to build that credibility is just a lot of opportunity lost.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue into building that expertise. Many would say, obviously, if you're running an ad agency, you know a thing or two about marketing, about running ads, and you've been in that for a long time. What was the journey like when you first got into the industry? What, I guess, are some stories that where you've fallen on your face along the way to get to where you are now?
Well, yeah, there's too many to count. The biggest thing in the marketing advertising has been just some of the things I already mentioned, is the change of the mediums and the change of the dynamics. So, growing up in, it's funny, I tell people I'm both analog and digital because, being born in the late 70s, but coming up through, we had telephones and everything was done through all ads were in the newspaper. Like when I started in advertising, it was all newspaper advertising. Like this, and this is in 2001. This isn't like, in 1974. It's 2001. Newspaper ads, magazine ads, billboards, and of course television. And when I started as a junior account executive in marketing, there was like 700 newspapers, and my job was literally taking an ad that would be created for Verizon Wireless and resizing it with my graphic designers, 700 different variations. And you would think it wouldn't change much, but it's funny how the perspective of the phone and the person and the copy does change when those sizes, anyone that's a graphic designer is shaking their head, nodding their head right now. And literally that's what I would, and you don't know, it's funny, you'll blow your mind, but somehow versioning from an 8.5 by 11 ad to a 7 by 6 ad, certainly it becomes square, not rectangle. Somehow text gets misspelled. I don't know how that happened in the resizing. So I had to proof 700 ads, to make sure that, okay, the copy, everything looks good. And art director would look at it too. My art director goes, is this pretty? Oh, it's still pretty. Okay, well, let me check all the words and make sure they're spelled right. And occasionally it would run, you run 20,000 ads in a month or whatever. Yeah. One or two of them might have an error that you missed. And,
oh, wow.
That wasn't fun.
Because in the newspaper, you can't fix it. If there's
it's run in print.
Yeah, a digital ad, you could probably go in, pause the ad, make the adjustments, and then run it again.
Exactly.
But this is one and done.
One and done. And so definitely had headaches there. And I know you're probably looking for bigger pitfalls along the career path, which I'll get into. But nonetheless, started there. And so the transition of media, and that's where it's kind of the analog and the digital came. I came up through that, but in real time, like working with Verizon, ironically, as the smartphone that I hold in my hand, that world came about, and digital media is coming into play. Social media is coming into play. This transition of mediums and vehicles with which for that to broadcast was all changing right in the middle of my career. Yeah. So I got to experience and knew. So I can walk into boardrooms now and have that analog discussion with some old OGs, like CEOs of companies and all that. We can have that discussion. We can talk about how it was in the good old days. But I've also lived and experienced and have a digital agency that's doing real new world stuff. And so that's always been an interesting dynamic of my career, of having both lived and executed in both the analog and the digital. Yeah. And watching that transition happen in real time while I'm working at ad agencies going, wait a second, newspapers are closing, radio stations are moving all to Sirius XM. Okay. I need to make sure I'm learning this digital thing as I moved along.
Well, that right there, I think what you're talking about is awareness and the ability to adapt. I love the reason I asked the question about why some folks they're hard on, I don't need social media. They're refusing to change almost. And I think as you saw the change in advertising and in marketing, that the companies that refuse to adapt and change, they've suffered the consequences. Yep. So kind of looking at the environment and being attentive enough to see, okay, these avenues are moving elsewhere. I better upgrade my skills.
Yep.
And kind of roll with it where it goes. How important is it for anybody, regardless of their expertise, their industry, to kind of always kind of update their skills and roll with where the industry is going?
I will say, I'm going to answer that in two different ways. Number one, and I don't know that until this very moment I've put my finger on it. And, I've had success, I've had failures. I'm pretty successful overall. Mm-hmm. I would say my number one reason for success is my ability to adapt and change. Yeah. And to not, and I even have friends, I'm 42 years old. I have friends that, we all look the same, but if there's one characteristic that's different than me and most of my friends, I've always been an early adopter. I've always been kind of a tech person. Like I was the one, putting all my tapes to CDs when you could burn them and do all that. And I've always been
getting
open.
APKs and
like,
stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Like
I didn't have a single, I didn't have a CD or DVD in my, the moment
stuff.
you could have digital media, I didn't have a CD or DVD in my house. Nothing. Mm-hmm. But I've always been open to embracing and seeing trends or changes and going, I see where this is going. Mm-hmm. I have no, I don't hold on to anything. It's almost kind of like houses and everything. You get attached to it. I don't get attached to the old ways of doing things. I've always said, that's where it's going. I'm going there. I've got no attachment to this. I'm not going to get lost in this shuffle. I'm going to go there. Yeah. And so people that aren't willing to do that are always going to be behind. And it doesn't mean you have to be at level 12, which I might be because that's just how I was made, you know. But if you aren't willing to let go, it will pass you by in a hurry. The market is the market is the market. And it's going, you can't stop inertia in the bus.
Yeah.
That bus is moving. You can hold on and do whatever. You're going to get in the way. You're going to get run over and left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Have there been any trends that you missed out on or anything that kind of like, you're like, I missed that?
I was ahead of and too early on. This was a startup, started iDrive On Demand, my successful failure, as I like to call it. We were doing what Carvana, if you see all the stuff, the online cars don't go, you know, we were a digital shopping place. This is 2013. We were too early. And that was, I don't think I've ever been behind, but I've maybe been too, it's kind of like AR and VR now. I think people that are putting all their money in this, it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's a little early.
Or it's like MySpace. I think MySpace was supposed to come after Facebook.
Yeah.
When you think about it now, like we have the top 5 songs. Think about how musically inclined we are. You could easily add a podcast on there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Where if MySpace would have came around the same time as Facebook, I think we'd definitely see a decline in Facebook.
And I think if there was one thing that I was maybe not behind, but relative to other things I feel like I've been ahead of, and that we've adapted here at Radical, and like when I started Radical 2 years ago, I think I could have been ahead of this video and content thing. I saw it 5 years ago, and I was like, wait a second. It's becoming a more ubiquitous. Smartphones are easier to adopt. This is all going there. Doing high-quality video is not as expensive as it used to be. Like, okay, we need to go all in on video and content.
Yeah.
I think I saw that 5 years ago, but I didn't even personally start really adopting it till I'm like, when I started Radical, like that was like game on. I think I could have done it 5 years ago, and Radical would probably be, you know, a $20 million agency instead of a $3 million agency because we would have been 3 years ahead of it.
Yeah. Y'all hiring? How important is it to trust your gut with all that? Because I think for anybody that's entrepreneurial or been trying to do things, start companies, I think there's a combination of paying attention to where the market's going and what your industry's doing, but also a little innovation. You want to disrupt an industry, right? So how important is it to listen to your gut along the way? I mean, when you see the ubiquitousness of these videos on the smartphones, the accessibility of it right now, podcasts, audio, a lot of advertising. I think advertisers might start paying a little bit more attention to audio.
Yep.
Because a lot more people are listening to podcasts and things like that. How important is it to, I guess, trust your gut and just go for it?
I think it's really important. When I get asked this question a fair amount in like different ways, I always table it with a little bit of practicality. So I believe in believing in your gut. I believe in, if you got an idea, following it through. But I also believe in making sure that there's a market for your idea or an immediate way. It's kind of like it was asked in a different way, but people are like, well, how did you know to start, Radical, and what made you take that? Well, I had 2 clients that said, hey, go do your own thing. And, and what they were willing to pay me would at least pay me what I could, so I could pay my bills.
Yeah.
And so it was practical, and it's like, I didn't just go, man, I have this idea. I think if we focus on content and we do radical stuff and like we get in digital and like we make it affordable for small to medium business. Yeah, that was all the idea, but I wasn't going to, I needed some, I got babies to feed, and a wife and a house and all those things. So, it wasn't that I wasn't willing to take 2 steps back to take 12 forward, but I wasn't going to take 12 back to take 14 forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when I get asked that question, it's like easy. Yeah, oh man, you got to go all in. You got to give it all up. You got to do it. No, you got to be a little more practical than that. You got to test your concept a little bit. Make sure you've got a market. If you're going to go all in, whether it's an idea, and if you can do it moonlighting, by keeping your income and do all things, do it that way.
Yeah. Low overhead.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important on where you're at in your life with your priorities. Because I mean, like a year and a half ago, or about 8 months ago, I lost every piece of equipment I had, and I was like, I mean, do I want to get a 9 to 5, or is it like I mean, I can build this back up again. Whereas, like, if I did have kids, realistically, being able to restart everything over from ground one, invest money, I'm like, maybe I do need to get hired by someone for 6 months and build that up. You know what I'm saying? To put you back in that position. But I think it depends on where you're at too.
I think the reality of it is some folks just, quite frankly, aren't willing to make the sacrifices to start the side hustle. They
1000%.
might be working a job and they say, okay, I want to do this. Yeah, but you're going to have to be up until 3 a.m. every day for about a year, maybe 3, before this can replace the income that your job is working. For somebody that's probably sitting on that, I mean, I used to always say it's going to be harder than you think, but easier than you expect. What would you tell somebody that's sitting kind of on the edge of their seats with an idea that they haven't just gone for yet? How would you kind of tip them off that edge?
I think, again, I'll answer a couple different ways. First, it's okay that we're not all made to be entrepreneurs. And the ubiquitous nature and entrepreneurship is sexy and Insta famous and everybody looks like they're flying on jets and they don't really have a job and all that. It's created this perception that's not reality. And so first and foremost, I would coach people, and if I was talking with them or having this conversation, and kind of counsel them if I felt like they really had it in them, if they had the skill set, not just the initiative, even though that's 60% of it probably, but they really have the skill set to make this a reality.
Yeah.
And it's okay because it's not everyone. Just like I'm never going to be a rocket science and I'm not going to own Apple, and like it's okay. It's the 1%. I may or may not, probably very unlikely I will ever be in that 1%. But it's okay, because it's 1% for a reason. And entrepreneurship is great and it's wonderful, but it's not for everyone. And so that would be the first thing. But if you have an idea that you've tested in a small way or a small market, it's successful, it's not a product that there's a million of them. Your t-shirt company, you better have a really great t-shirt. I mean, because everybody's got a t-shirt brand. And and I have friends that have t-shirt brands and I respect them, and some of them are great, but there's a lot of them, so, but if you have something that's truly unique, truly differentiated in the market, you have a plan for it, then it's just the courage to kind of take a step forward in a practical way. And that is hard to counsel because courage is not really a learned skill, but it's back to, I think, some practical decisions that you have to make. And you've got to, just like you said, staying up till 3 a.m. or doing those things, some people just aren't going to be able to stick with that. And so, and it's okay. Some of the happiest people I know work 9 to 5, and they make $40,000 a year, and they play dodgeball and soccer, and they take their kids to school, and they're the happiest little family ever. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're happy. Be happy. But if you've got an idea and you've got bigger ambitions and bigger goals, then you got to dive in.
I love that answer, because I think that challenges people to analyze and audit what it is they actually want, because you can scroll through Instagram and you see the Insta famous hopping on jets and things like that, and it looks promising. It looks exciting. However, what they don't highlight is the work that gets there, and what they don't highlight is that's not their jet.
That's right.
That trip was probably free. It probably cost them expenses and what they got paid. You know what I mean? And I can attest to that, what you said too, where you have to try it in that controlled environment. I remember when I graduated from, and I had 5 jobs in 13 months, and I had a camera during the entire time. And throughout all those jobs, I remember I took pictures of my dog, put them on Instagram, stuff like that. And I remember someone asked me, so how much are your photos with me and my dog? And I was like,
there's an idea.
Yeah.
I was like, which I have family photos.
That's
you just that control, like you said, test it in that controlled environment, but do it safely. Like do it while you're not risking 100% of everything. So because when you're passionate about something and you love it, when you start making money on it, it's gonna test it, that real love for it.
I also think I'll say this is 100% transparent, because sometimes I've thought about this myself. Like, we all get breaks, and, I say, well, you create your own breaks. People say that, but, we all get breaks and things happen. I've never been the 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. worker guy. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what I am, and even when I work for other people and have my own company now, I'm available and I'm willing to be available and work regardless of where I am. What do I mean by that? Doesn't mean that I'm at my kid's soccer game, definitely looking. But when I'm in the car for 2 seconds, I'm willing to send 2 emails. When I get home and I've got 2 seconds or whatever, I've become very conscientious, especially with my family and my wife. I think she was here, she'd say I've gotten a lot better at this because I don't let it take away from like the moment. But I am willing to be available and work pretty much any time that I have my own time. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm not saying it's healthy, but it's always been a characteristic. Even when I was like a junior account executive VP, I was willing to be on the way to the intramural basketball game and send 4 emails. And as soon as I got into a timeout, like in an intramural game, no family, no kids, and I see a text message from a client, write them back. I have a lot of in trying to like, but I wasn't necessarily staying up till 2 a.m. Like doing the thing. But I was always willing to catch moments throughout. I was willing to give up my personal time about any time to get ahead in business for my own self. And I still do that with Radical. My clients know they can get me. I'll always push. I get the most out of like every minute when I could be working. Yeah. And I will fully admit there's parts of that are not completely healthy or the best thing for everyone. But that's been my way of getting ahead. And more than I work 6 a.m. to 2 a.m., I'm just willing for those 12 hours of awake time during the day, even laying bed at night, I'm willing to send 4 emails, would I like to have the TV on and watching my Netflix and not be interrupted at all? Of course. But I'm just willing to do that because I know that's what it takes to get ahead.
Yeah. And what I pick up with that is self-awareness. And I think throughout life, in terms of being successful, people knowing themselves and knowing what they're willing to do and how they operate. Some people like to compartmentalize things where I only answer my emails in this hour.
That's right.
Or things like that. But not everybody works like that. How long did it take you to kind of get into your groove and find out how you operate best?
I think, like I said, like even in, I came up through the agency ranks really quickly. I was promoted 5 times in 5 years. I went probably the fastest you can go from junior account executive to an account director's role within an agency. I opened our New York office. Like, I was always willing to adapt within the realms of the time that I was awake naturally to get ahead on those things. And that was just innate in me once I got into the workforce. And so I don't know that that was something I learned or stepped into or whatever. It was just kind of always innate in me a little bit. I immediately saw, and I didn't do this like, I wasn't like always the go-getter in college and high school and all that. I was a B student. I barely graduated from Clemson because I barely went to class. I just, wasn't the greatest student.
Yeah.
When I went to class and I took the tests, I always made A's or B's. Without even studying. No, I am that guy that everybody hates. That you don't have to study. No, but I hate going to class.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But once I got into the workforce, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm getting paid to be here. How do I make more money? Well, I got to get a higher position. How do I get a higher position? Well, I show initiative and make the client respect me more. And then when like literally, I think the first 8 months I was in my first job. Like my boss, which was just like one position higher, an AE went and got married or something, I don't remember. And I went to their boss and was like, I want that job. Yeah. Like, you haven't even been here a year, you're not qualified for it. I want it. And to his credit, he gave it to me. He gave it to me 7 times, and we grew that piece of business from $3 million to $40 million because he believed in me, and we took it there.
I'd say you made a good choice.
He did, and that was with a lot of team's help. That wasn't just me. But I was always like, even in the agency world now, like I'm really good at seeing opportunity. Like some people will, you hear something and you just go, oh, we don't do that or we can't do that. And you're not being negative. You're not seeing that could lead to this opportunity or this.
Yeah.
I've been very good and innate in that in my career of hearing the smallest little trail of breadcrumbs and running down that path really quick.
Yeah, it's like you're connecting the dots in real time. And you're
Yeah.
like, do you guys see this?
Yeah, you see this? Like, I walk into a room, I never forget, like, maybe 3 or 4 years of my career, you know, and working with Verizon a lot. We go into a meeting and, you know, we started getting higher in the ranks of the meetings we were in, we were invited to. We were doing this small piece of their business and a huge company. And they'd be like, you know, I think we're going to start doing this with sports sponsorships. You guys do that? Yeah, we do that. We do that. We can do that. Never done it in our lives. The agency had never done it. We started departments based on things that we'd never done. But I would just hear, okay, that's an opportunity. And we'd go hire the right people to get. It wasn't like we just made it up. We'd go hire professionals and all that. But I just saw I'd be able to connect the dots and know, okay, that means more revenue, more money. And I know we do a good job because we're going to just you know, we're going to run it down and make it happen. It wasn't like I was worried. I don't ever worry about how it's going to get done.
Yeah.
And I would encourage people, don't worry about how it's going to get done. Just say you're going to get it done and then figure it out.
Yeah, one kind of unspoken thing that I kind of took from that too is you also put yourself around individuals that are on the same path or in the same boat, so to say. They're also working, you know what I'm saying? They're people who are giving and taking. And that goes like, I mean, I've had Charles and Ted be like before, well, I mean, I got a videographer who can do it. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know how to do that. And then I'm sitting there like, absolutely, man. We'll have that done in, you know what I'm saying, 2-3 weeks. Absolutely. We'll get it done, you know?
Yeah.
We're working things out, but you place yourself around those people who understand your goal, who also are going to like safely nudge you. Like it's a safe nudge. It's like, take that.
I think it's also just realizing that we live in a world where the answers are at our fingertips. And whenever we have an idea or a question on how does it get done, there's an expert that's probably done it, knows how to do it, or we can figure out how to do it. When I started a podcast, I knew nothing about starting a podcast. Google and YouTube University was how I learned how to do it.
Yep.
So either you spend the time to learn how to do it yourself, or you spend the money to hire the right person.
That's right.
With the expertise to do it. One of my last questions, because I know we're running out of time here, so much more I'd love to unpack, but I always ask this question in the podcast, whether it be in their personal life or in business, what's one of the biggest storms you've overcome that gives you the confidence to take on whatever challenge comes your way?
Well, you know, I like to say when I was a day old and on life support because my left kidney, I was born with a cystic kidney. I was like say I was born with adversity but they figured out it was cystic, so they took it out and then I was fine. And besides stunning my growth, I was going to be 7 foot instead of 6'5". That's the joke because usually people with kidney problems actually end up being short, but I was lucky enough not to have that issue. So all jokes aside, there's been a few different things. You know, it probably where I hit the most adversity was later in my career. You know, I went and did the startup with iDrive, took out life savings, took out some of my 401k to start that business. All said, probably close to $500,000 of personal funds, some investors that came on board on a smaller level, and it failed. You know, we were ahead of our time. We definitely made some mistakes. We had a bad, not economy, but a few bad months hit us at an unexpected time, and it was kind of like, I can borrow more money, and because it was literally like we went from trajectory upward, everything's good, not knowing or having the experience maybe in the car business, maybe a little more overextended than we even realized, and it was like 3 bad months. It was like, I can't pay these bills, you know, literally unexpected. And so there's still, you know, people out there not too happy with me that invested, you know, to be quite frank, you know, transparent about it. You know, sometimes you invest and you win, sometimes you invest and you lose. I lost a lot of money, but I learned a lot. And, you know, in the middle of your career, when you've been really successful, made a lot of money, and you're sitting, I won't say on flat zero, it wasn't quite that bad, but it wasn't far from that. You got a family to feed and, you know, you've had all this success and you're like, all right, now what?
Yeah.
And that was, you know, in the middle part of my career, and I guess I'm still in the middle part. But that was like, you know, you got to pull your pants up, cinch that belt, and get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I joked, another guy on podcast, had a pity party, and, we threw a party, literally pity party, for, a couple weeks of me going, all right, now what? I knew I had skill sets, so it was never a doubt in knowing if I could go make $1. I knew I could. But, confidence lost, belief in, man, we had a great idea. Why didn't it work? Why me? What? A little bit of that. But at the stage with if that had happened to me with no family, no kids, no anything at age 26, it would have been adversity, but it would have been different adversity.
Yeah.
But at age 37-ish, when you've had a lot of success and known nothing really but success in business, it was a smack in the face. Mm-hmm. And so, I had to pick up myself off the floor, went and worked for a couple other people and for a few years and, started building back up and then started Radical, and it's been, a good ride, but, that was a challenge, and I learned a lot, but, it was difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, getting through that and being where you are now, what are the rainbows you're currently chasing out there? What are some of the goals for yourself and Radical?
Yeah, we're we've been growing fast. I've anecdotally and just learning a little bit of what the numbers are. We're one of the faster growing agencies in the state of South Carolina. We've gone from 18 months 0 to 7 figures in revenue. And, it was just me in a co-work space, 18 months ago. Now it's about 12 of us, and I own the co-work space and that we're in now. And then the agency is here. So we've had a really great ride and trajectory. We have some really great clients and partners that we work with. And, I want us to stay boutique and small, so I want us to be probably in that 30 employee range over the next 2 years, and starting to, it's less important to me that we have X number of clients or we're trying to get Nike or like a certain brand. I want to do great work for great people and that have great ideas. It's really hard to do great work with bad people. It's also hard to do great work with bad ideas. And what do I mean by that? Just sometimes there's just business models out there, small to medium business. It's just not a sustainable model. It's Blockbuster video. This is not a good thing, and then they don't want to listen or something. And so we want to work with great people. We care about our clients. We're really vested with the clients we work with. Our universal reviews from clients, we get that feedback, and so just to kind of keep growing. And we want to be a resource for small to medium businesses in Greenville, but we also want to grow more regionally, which we're starting to do, and get those opportunities. And I just want to really provide a place that people want to come to work. Including myself. I mean, it's selfish a little bit, but I want to be here, but I want to create a space where people enjoy coming to work. They enjoy the clients that we work with, because I think that's sustainable. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can't say more good things about the co-work space that we're currently in right now. ComRADery is awesome. The podcast studio is awesome, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be growing too as the years go on. Last question really is, how can folks get in touch with you, find out more about you, and maybe even use your services, and maybe if they're in the Greenville area, use the co-work space?
ComRADery, co-work. You can look it up if you look up co-work Greenville or the old Google search, but ComRADery, co-work Greenville. For the co-work space, we're Radical, which is radical.company. That's the website. People get thrown off a little bit. That's not .com. No, it's radical.company. Just type that out. You'll get to all of our stuff. And then I'm at Ryan Alford on Instagram. It's probably where I'm the most active. That's RyanAlford. And if you look me up on LinkedIn as well, Ryan Alford there, all of our content I post probably 3 to 4 times a day, and stories and different things. So everything from personal stuff and positivity to marketing tips.
Yeah, and I'm just over here trying to keep up, man. Hey, well, I appreciate the time today, and thanks so much. We're going to have to do this again sometime and unpack more into marketing, because I really think our listeners can get a lot of value out of that. So if you're at home, in the car, or wherever you may be, maybe for a jog listening to this, make sure you reach out to Ryan and find out how he can help you out. Or even if you're in the Greenville area, check out the co-work space. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without a little pain. Let's grow. The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast is recorded at ComRADery, a collective workspace in Greenville, South Carolina, right off the Swamp Rabbit Trail. If you're looking for a place to grow your business, network with other professionals, and establish your own workspace, ComRADery is the place to do so.